Hey everyone, it's Teacher Mike here in this video podcast, YouTube video, IGTV, whatever you're watching this or listening is 100% in English because you've asked for it, right? You told me that you wanted more 100% English videos, so that's what we're gonna do. Now, I'm gonna help you out. You're gonna be able to get a transcript of this whole video or podcast if you're only listening to it. So you can actually read at the same time that I speak, and that's going to help you out a lot, by the way. If you want to study English, that's a very good way to practice your reading, and then after you cannot read it and then just listen to it. It's going to be very, very helpful. But you can only get the transcript of the video if you go into our Telegram group. So be mindful. There's a Telegram group that you can get into that is completely free. There's nothing there that you need to pay for anything. I just want to get the more involved students over there, and then everyone can learn together. So I am the only one who's able to talk in that group. So you just go in there, get the transcript. There's a bunch of videos there. There's a lot of content that is exclusive to the group. So go in there, get the transcript of this video or podcast, and yeah, you're gonna enjoy it for your reading, listening, practice purposes. All right. So I'm going to talk about writing. Okay. So this is a video, a podcast, whatever, that we're going to think about things that you need to know before you write anything. Any test like Ielts or Celpip, any test that requires you to write an essay. I'm going to give you three very big key topics to be mindful of when you're writing an essay, a writing test. And that applies to your college, to your school, even in Portuguese. So that same key concepts that I'm giving you here apply to when you're writing in Portuguese, right? I was a very good writer in Portuguese even when I did vestibular, right? The university admissions exams. I did really well on writing. I think I got like a 23 out of 25 or 21 out of 25. And I remember I did well because of these three key things. So number one is avoid trying too hard, okay? Trying too hard is basically trying to show off vocabulary that you don't have by compensating with longer and not so common words and even expressions. For example, say there's a moment when you are writing that essay that you could use the expression in spite of, which is a very good expression. It means apesar de in Portuguese, right? In spite of. And it's common, it's not very rare. People use it. It's very useful. It's effective. You can prove your point very well using it. And it shows some knowledge of vocabulary. However, when you want to kind of show off, you could use other expressions. You could use something more complicated, such as notwithstanding, right? Which is a which is a far less common word, right? So not a lot of people use it. And it's going to sound very unnatural if your whole writing doesn't match the level of vocabulary of that expression. So, sometimes you're writing and you're trying to sound better and you're trying to show the examiner of the test or your professor or whatever that you have a higher level of vocabulary, and then you try hard and you put that one word that you've learned the day before so that you can show it, and then it sounds horrible, right? It sounds horrible. So that's trying too hard. And there's no such thing as fake it till you make it in writing, especially when you're dealing with tests like Ielts or Celpip. You either know or you don't know. You either have the vocabulary or you don't have the vocabulary. So prepare ahead. Make sure you have a good grasp of intermediate, advanced vocabulary, and don't fake the use of the words that you don't normally use. Just use the words that you feel comfortable using, right? And if you want to take this up a notch, even if you want to make it even worse, you can use that same word that you're trying to fake into your vocabulary more than once. And you are welcome. Now, that's the one thing that you can do to make your essay really unnatural and very fake sounding. So don't do that. That's number one thing. Avoid trying too hard. Second thing, and this is a intermediate advanced concept of writing. So if you are listening to the podcast or watching the video and you are not so used to writing, this is probably a little bit more difficult to understand, but I'm going to explain it to you in a way that you can understand it really well. So So that's number 2. Words and expressions have intent. Words and expressions have intent, right? Intent. There's an intention behind the word that you're using for each sentence and idea that you want to pass to the reader, all right? So, the decision to have one word instead of another is active, right? It's well thought out. Sometimes a word or expression is more appropriate than another, and this is something that you can only learn through practice. So you can only learn this if you're writing very often, right? And here's a very effective way of learning the intent and the better usage of words is that you write the same essay or the same text or the same story, whatever, over and over and over again, right? Write it a few times. And you can go even further. You can write the same sentences over and over. So you have a full paragraph, and then you can rewrite each sentence a few times, and then you can find the perfect one, right? When you're able to say more with fewer words, that's when you're getting somewhere, right? And Nietzsche, which is the psychologist, whatever philosopher, Nietzsche, the genius one, he said that he could write in a sentence what people couldn't write in a book. It's saying people can't write a whole book about what I can say in a sentence, what I can write in a sentence. And that is the key concept of this part. It's less is more when it comes to writing. Jordan B. Peterson is a psychologist that a psychiatrist, I think. Yeah, and Nietzsche is also a psychiatrist, I guess. Who wrote this bestseller book called 12 Rules for Life. I always talk about this book. I always talk about him because I think he's an amazing writer. And he explained that is the same technique that he uses to write his books. And that's where I got it from. That's where I thought about it. So I don't use it myself all the time. I'm not using it right now as I talk. But when I'm writing and I want to make sure I have a very good writing, I use it. So I write the same sentence over and over again until I find the better sentence. Now you can do this to a high level where you do like a whole book doing like this, and that's how people write bestsellers. Or you can just do your article, your essay, your Ielts essay like this. You're practicing. That's good enough. And then number 3, and that's very obvious. Read a lot and write a lotter. Right? You see what I did there? Yeah. If you got this joke, very good. You have good vocabulary. If you didn't get the joke, then you maybe need to study a little bit more. So if you really want to get good at writing, you'll need to get good at reading. Right? It's that simple. I think basically you should read about two books a month, and that's the bare minimum. And then read a little bit every day. So don't try to read the whole book in one evening. Read like a little bit every day. It's kind of going to the gym, right? And don't keep it too simple, right? Don't try to read something that is very simple to you. Read things that are complicated that make you think about what you're reading. You can come and be a part of the book club, which is something I do. Every month we read a book, we talk about it. So that's going to be 12 books a year already. I think you should just add another one to the list, and then you have 24 books a year. That's 2 books a month. I think that should do the trick. I think you should read more, but that's, I think, the bare minimum. The average Brazilian doesn't even read like 2 books a year, so you're good. And if you're not into books, although I think you should be, find something else that requires you to actively read and think about what you're reading. Fiction books are great. Because they're stories. And, I talked about this many times in the past. The human mind is designed to comprehend and assimilate stories better. But, if books are not your thing, find something else that is. But try to read every day. In fact, if you are reading this thing right now, you are part of my Telegram group, and you're awesome, right? Because you're reading the thing that I'm talking to you in a camera or even in the podcast. You are listening and you're reading to it, and that is really, really good, really cool. So those are the 3 things. Number 1, don't try too hard. Don't fake your vocabulary. Number 2, understand that words have intent, and then finally, number 3, read every day and then write every day as well, even more. Okay? So that's it. Love you all. Thank you so much for being here. If you're a student, if you're a listener of the podcast, if you're a follower from Instagram, from YouTube, it doesn't really matter. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate that you took your time today to listen to it or even read this transcript. Now, let's shut our minds off. Let's read and forget a little bit about the noise of the world. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.